So it is 12:01, and we're going to go ahead and begin this process. My name is Nathaniel Sperger. I am with the Women's Business Center here in North Carolina. We serve 52 counties of Eastern North Carolina, and we provide resources to whoever comes and asks for them. So even if you're not in those 52 counties, we're happy to speak to you, to have one-on-one counseling sessions, or to guide you to the nearest Women's Business Center that can help you with more local resources. Like I said, we do one-on-one counseling. We do classes like this. We host other organizations that are interested in helping out people with starting businesses or continuing to grow their business. If you have a new idea or you're trying to start a business, come have a session with us. If you're interested in writing a business plan, you're currently writing a business plan, have a session with us and we can talk about it. We can give you some counsel along the lines of writing your business plan. Classes like this will give you resources to know what direction you might want to take your business. The Hub certification is a great resource, and we would like everyone here to take advantage of it if it is appropriate for your business. So take notes and ask questions. If we can't get to them during the presentation, we will try to get to them after through email or however is appropriate. I'm going to hand it over to Shay and let her continue with the presentation.
All right, great. All right, well, thank you so much, Nathaniel. Always glad to be here to assist in the process and all the great work that's going on at the Women's Business Center. And so with that, we're going to go through the Hub certification process. My name again is Sharonetta McIntyre. I go by Shay. And we'll make sure that you have the contact information for getting a hold of appropriate resources here at the Hub office. What we're going to do is to run through just kind of a quick overview of Hub, and then talk more specifically about the Hub certification, which includes the electronic vendor portal, registration, submission of an application, along with required documents. And then on the back end, we'll talk a little about finding Hub vendors and how different organizations go about doing that. Briefly talk responsibilities and how you find opportunities and some ways to develop your business. And then we'll end it up with some information about doing business with the state and update you on any upcoming events that we have. So I'd like to get started with just a quick overview. Every industry, of course, has all of its acronyms associated with it. And so I just want to do a high-level look at some of these so that you have some context as we talk about certification. So one term that you'll hear is SWUC. That stands for the Statewide Uniform Certification Application. And so that is for the state of North Carolina, the application that we use to perform the Hub certification. Hub, of course, is Historically Underutilized Businesses. That's our office. It's a state certification. Terms you may also hear that are similar or in the same space. MWE for Minority Business Enterprises, or WBE for Woman-Owned Business Enterprises. And so typically those are the local level programs where municipalities and or different organizations may also have a process where they register you based on your Hub certification to find out about things that are going on more at a local level. An SDB, a small disadvantaged business. There are some programs that may focus on, in addition to the minority or woman-owned status of a business, may also have a small business component. North Carolina just recently launched our small business enterprise program. And so that is something else that you'd be able to take advantage of if, in fact, your business that has 1.5 million or less in revenues and you have 100 or less employees within your business. And so the target there is that we would have some opportunities where small businesses don't have to compete against the huge firms that often are awarded business. Those next couple of acronyms, the SDVOSB and WOSB, those are federal certifications. And so those we'll talk a little bit about later, but those are managed by the Small Business Administration. And so if you're going to do federal government contracting, then those may come into play there. And they also factor into the Hub certification process. I'll share that with you as we go. Those are free certifications. The last two that are listed there on the page are kind of industry certifications. So there is a Women's Business Enterprise National Council. That's an organization. There is a fee associated with the certification there. And then there's also the CVMSDC, Carolinas, Virginia Minority Supplier Development Council. That's an organization that has a certification fee also that's involved. So with that, let's continue moving forward. Just to talk a little bit about the Hub office as a whole. Our office is really responsible for promoting diversity and inclusion in state government, procurement, and contracting. We do that primarily in 4 ways. One is that we manage the overall certification process for the state. We do a lot of advocacy in terms of encouraging the use of historically underutilized businesses. That's with the state agencies, community colleges, university system. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we look at some of the reporting. Business development is also something that we offer. And so there is where we really try to get a better understanding of what your business is and does, and then get some understanding of how you might integrate into state government contracting. Often that means that you're going to look for local opportunities initially. Sometimes it means that you have to spend some time really building your base business so that you get a clear understanding of what your costs are, and really understand your own business model before you launch into some government contracting where your administrative costs, you got to have some costs built in to manage that. Last but not least, we also do spending report collection. And so basically, we have a person, our compliance officer, manages the process of interacting with over 200 goods and services organizations, and then over 500 construction type organizations across the state of North Carolina. There's quarterly reporting that's done. And so we are understanding what their spending is with Hub firms. This just gives you an idea of where we were for 2021 fiscal year, which ended in June. And so these are not the absolute official numbers, but based on just because the organizations have a time frame in which they have to submit their final numbers. As of though last week, the state spent, we can see, over $9 billion in the area of goods and services. And of that, a little over 6% is what was spent with Hub firms. So the goal is that there's at least a minimum 10% spending that different agencies and government entities are doing across the board. So you can see there continues to be opportunity to have Hub firms involved in that process and being able to be awarded business with the state. In the area of design and construction spending, we've typically done a bit better over the last few years. And so you can see that the total spending that has been done with Hub firms overall is about 21%. And so we want to continue those trends, although as you look at individual entities, some are clearly doing better than what others are. So we want to see at least a minimum 10% in all of those categories. to get an idea of what the state buys. I mean, literally, the state buys some of everything. And so, from pens and paper, all the way up to some of the things that you see listed on the slide here. So, things you may not always think about, medical care. So ultimately, there are, doctors and nurses that are a part of what the state pays. Now, that does not always happen, directly. Sometimes the state then contracts out to different entities, and they in turn are the ones that are, actually where some of those services may reside. But ultimately, there's some accountability that the state has in terms of how our dollars are being spent. So this gives you an idea of what some of those different categories of services are, maybe that you don't always think about, the information technology related things. PPE, as we've gone through COVID, the amount of personal protective equipment that has been needed has grown exponentially. And so organizations like Department of Health and Human Services and Department of Public Safety have had huge needs for those types of things. And so again, you can see on the list, space heaters and air purifiers, cameras, refrigerators, freezers, again, some of everything that the state purchases. Now, what specifically is a hub? In order to qualify as a firm, then you do have to be a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident. There are categories of hub firms, and so you see those listed here. Minority category is for Black, Hispanic, Asian American, and American Indian ethnicity. And then if you don't fall in that category, then we look to see, are you a female-owned business? If not, are you a disabled business owner? And then there's a last category of economically and socially disadvantaged that some firms may fall into. Ownership, operation, and control of the firm must be 51% or more in those categories that are listed above. There are some what we call self-identified categories that a business may fall into. This is a pretty limited pool of businesses. There is a self-certification that takes place there. And specifically, there's a disabled business enterprise, not to be confused with the disadvantaged business enterprise, which is a certification under the Department of Transportation that is specific to that particular organization. The disabled business enterprise, and then the nonprofit work centers for blind and severely disabled. Again, there are very limited number of those across the state that even exist. So to start the certification process, go to our website. You can easily Google NC Hub and get right to our website. When you click on the main page, you'll see to the right-hand side a block for certifications. And so if you go there, then you basically will be able to access the different parts of certification. The certification process for Hub is a three-step process. The first thing you'll do is to register in the Electronic Vendor Portal, or EVP for short. Followed by that, and so as a part of that registration in EVP, you'll need to specify that you want to be that you want to register for both IPS, which is the Interactive Purchasing System, and then also the Hub certification. There is something called e-procurement that is optional, and so we suggest that you sign up for that. However, again, it's an optional service. The second step in the process is to submit your application. And then the third step is to be sure that you include all of the required documents that are necessary to accompany that application. So step one, for the EVP registration, you'll need internet access. You'll need to have your federal ID, your tax ID number. If you have an EIN for the business, then that's what you'll use. If you're a sole proprietor, you may be using your social security number. Now, as a sole proprietor, you can also still get an EIN number so that you don't have to paste your social security number over everything. However, ultimately, that's a decision within the business. Whatever it is that's used as your tax ID number is what we'll need to see in the system. And then, of course, you'll need to have a valid email address because there is a verification step where once you do the EVP registration, you're going to get an email to that address and basically say, hey, we just want to make sure this really is you that's signing up to be a part of North Carolina's vendor system. To get started with EVP, there's information on the website. There's some training. Hub does not own the EVP system, and so I'm going to give you some contact information that will help you to get what you need for that front end step in the process. Okay. So for the EVP registration, basically what you'll do is go to the electronic vendor portal. Again, it's easy to Google NC space EVP. And then when you get to that page, you'll register as a new vendor. If you have any questions about that process, you can call the EVP help desk. They're very, very capable of assisting you in that process. And so, and generally, you're going to get a person directly to talk to and to help you through that process. However, if you're not available during those hours and you want to email them, then there's an email address also. So what do you register for in EVP? Again, you're required to register for the interactive purchasing system. And that IPS system is basically what the state uses to provide information about the formal solicitations, so opportunities to do business with the state. And so once you go through that registration process, you'll begin to see automatic notifications that are generated from IPS for your business based on either commodity codes that describe the kinds of goods and services that your business provides, or if you're construction related business, there's a set of construction codes that you'll be able to go through and specify as a part of setting up your EVP profile. So that way there's a flow through of the system. Second thing that you'll need to specify that you want to sign up for in EVP is that you want to do Hub certification. And so that is going to cause another couple of screens to come up as you go through that process so that you can specify that information. There is a third thing that you can sign up for in EVP. It is optional, totally optional, but we do encourage you to sign up for it. It just simply allows you that if you are awarded business from the state, then you can do business electronically. So any purchase orders, things, there's a system that's used. Again, not something that you're required to do. There is for goods firms, then there is a 1.75% fee that you pay. And that just basically helps to pay for the system. So again, optional, but a good thing to do. The next thing here then is the actual Hub certification that you'll do as a part of EVP. So down the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see the different parts of the EVP system. And so based on what you're registering for, it'll just step you through all of those nicely and neatly. When you get to this main screen for Hub certification, you see this thing called Hub main location. Lots of businesses only, are using a primary business location. So this is just a label that you're going to use to specify some information. So I suggest that you call it main or primary office, whatever generic label you want to use to describe that. And then you just maintain the consistency of that as you fill in other screens in the EVP system. Here, You will just specify some basic information about your system. You'll go ahead and specify that location and then the hub category that you wish to certify in, that fits for your business. The next thing is that you're going to put in some information about the ownership of the firm. So first, you tell us what kind of structure you are set up under, whether it's sole proprietor, LLC, corporation, and then when your business actually started. And then you'll begin to provide some information about the owners of the firm. If you have multiple owners within your business, then we need to see the percentage. And you'll see down that left-hand side, there is an ownership percentage field. So just make sure all of those, when you enter that information in, add up to 100% so that we have a clear picture of who actually owns the firm. Once you've gotten through those screens, then basically you're looking for that green block in the middle of the screen that says success. The hub certification information has been saved. So then just kind of continue on through the screens. This sourcing contract screen, if you sign up for e-procurement, then you'll need to provide some information in terms of who a primary contact is there. Okay. Ultimately, you're going to get to the end of the registration process in EVP, and you're going to want to see this success message that says you have successfully registered for Hub and IPS. Right, so that takes care of the online EVP registration. The next thing that you'll need to do is to have the correct application to fill out for your Hub certification. There are 3 different applications. You only need to fill out one, so we'll just kind of give you an idea of which one you would need to use. The first one is that SWUC application. It's a 5-pager, and we'll go through some of the details of that on the next few slides. If you have some other certifications, you may be able to apply for a Hub certification using what we call Reciprocity. And so we'll take a closer look at that so that will make sense. This is the 5-page application. I certainly don't expect for you to be able to see the detail on it. The primary thing here is that we do want to make sure that once you have taken all that time to fill out the information there, be sure to sign and date it. Otherwise, we have to send it back to you. This describes the reciprocity options that are available. So if you meet one of these, then instead of that 5-page SWUC application, you're going to use one of the 1-pager applications. The first one is if you are certified as a disadvantaged business enterprise by Department of Transportation, then you would be able to fill out a 1-pager. If you have, going over to the right-hand side of the screen, if you have any of the certifications that are listed on that right-hand side of the screen, then you would also be able to use the 1-page reciprocity application as long as you're based in one of the states that are listed. So basically, it just means that you would have to have certified as one of those entities over on the right-hand side of the screen in North Carolina or one of the contiguous states to North Carolina. So that's going to be South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, or Virginia. Just to highlight the certifications over on the right-hand side of the page. So again, U.S. Small Business Administration, there is an 8A business development program. There's a woman-owned small business certification. And then also the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business. I think that one has now been rolled into Small Business Administration also. But those are all eligible. There's no cost associated with those certifications. Those last 2, from which we can accept a reciprocity to get your Hub certified, would be through the NMSDC or through the WeBank organization. Those are paid certifications if you would, if you've chosen to join those in order to help develop your business. This is just a This just, again, you can't see the detail, but just showing that the reciprocity, if you qualify for that, they're just one pagers. So just a shortened way for you to be able to apply for hub certification. So let's talk a little bit about then the required documentation that would be needed. So if you're doing the full-blown application, then based on your business structure will determine what required documents need to be provided as a part of the process. And then additionally, based on your structure, there may be some specific documents based on your business structure. We do ask that once you have filled out the information in the EVP system, that you provide your documents to the hub office within 30 days of that time. We get a notification once you've registered in EVP, and so the certification team is on the lookout for you to submit a completed packet to us within that 30-day time frame. There are several documents that are required as a part of the process. And most of these things are things you're either going to have easily accessible, or if not, then probably just still some good things that really need to be documented for your business anyway. We do ask for work experience for all the owners. And so just submit basically a resume for each person that's a part of the business with, standard resume, where they worked, the dates associated with those. Proof of citizenship, any of the documents that are listed there will be accepted. Proof of ethnicity, then again, for those categories, there are documents that we will accept for those. If you don't have any of those documents, there's an ethnicity affidavit that can be filled out, and it would need to be notarized. Copies of professional licenses. These are basically any licenses that are required for you to be able to operate your business. So, for example, if you're an electrician, then we need to see your electrician license. If you're a general contractor, we need to see the documentation associated with that. Schedule of salaries for all the employees. And if you're not paying yourself, which we know a lot of businesses don't do, just go ahead and still provide us at least an estimate of any money that you may be taking. You can do it as just a monthly average. And of course, if you have other people that are working in the business where you're paying employees, paying contractors, we want to see that information as well. Copies of signed leases. If you have an office space that you're renting, if you have any equipment that you're leasing in the business, then we want you to provide that as a part of the equipment list. There is some documentation to show us kind of the proof of ownership within your business. And so, you might have started the business out with, $100 in a checking account, and that's okay. We're just looking to understand how your business has come into being. You would also need to provide a list of whoever has signing authority on the bank account that you use for your business, 2 letters of reference. It's good to, use people that you've done work with. And so just a simple statement of, kind of what the scope of work was that you did with those particular businesses. And then if you're an out-of-state business and you're going to do, applying to do work here in the state of North Carolina, then we do ask for a home business, a certificate or a letter, basically for that certification from your home state. Okay, so if you're a corporation, here are some additional documents that are required as a part of the process. We want to see your articles of incorporation. If you don't have a copy handy, you can go to the Secretary of State website for North Carolina. You can get a copy there. We need to see any certificates and stock that you have. If there's a transfer ledger that's involved, either for you to have obtained the business initially, or if some changes have been made in the course of ownership of the business over time. Shareholders agreement, minutes of your first and most recent meeting, and then a copy of your corporate bylaws, and of course, if any amendments have been made since those were originally established. If you are a limited liability corporation, an LLC, then we're also going to want to see your articles of incorporation and an operating agreement. If you don't have an operating agreement, then some of these things you can Google. Google is our friend. Just make sure that that you pay attention if you're downloading something to your PC. Just make sure that you're downloading from a reputable website, because you don't want for your devices to be compromised in any way. If you're in a partnership, including LLPs, then again, we need to see partnership agreement for that. And if you are a franchise, we also need to see the franchise agreement. Sometimes the ability, that decision making and where that takes place, we can get some idea of what that is by the franchise agreement, because there can be a huge variation as far as what those agreements are. Sometimes you as the business owner in that, have a wide space of decision making. Other times you don't. That could impact your ability to become or not become Hub certified. How to submit your application and documents. So once you have that completed packet, and make sure, to go through the checklist. If there's anything that you believe you should not, doesn't apply for your business for some reason, or you're not able to produce, then be sure on your company letterhead to just write a statement as to why you think something doesn't apply for your business. So, for example, you don't have if you're a home-based office, then you may just state, hey, I don't have a lease agreement, I'm a home-based business, just write it out for us. So we're not having to make any assumptions about why it is that you're not submitting a lease agreement to us. If you have any questions throughout the process, please feel free to call our main office. I'll give you that information on the last slide. You can email your documents in, you can fax them in, you can mail them to our office. You can actually hand deliver them as well. We do ask that you schedule in advance if you're going to hand deliver. Even though we have folks in the office for all of the scheduled days, what we prefer to do is to have someone to actually look over your application and documents when you bring it in, so that we can just kind of do a quick scan, make sure that you have everything that's needed. The process can take 90 days or so. It all depends on how many new certifications and or recertifications that we're getting in the process. And so we do ask that you be patient in the process. Now, you know what, Nathaniel, I don't have the chat up. Are there any questions coming through the chat that we need to stop for at this point?
There was one question. It was related to something you covered a little bit earlier with the service disabled veteran certification, and how that would, if that was an acceptable certification, to then get the Hub certification, which, as I understand from what you said, it is, as long as you're from one of the contiguous states surrounding North Carolina, or from North Carolina, right?
That is correct. Yes. Okay.
And all they have to do is fill out a single page application and include that certification in it.
Yes, and there's still a brief list of required documents that are there. I think maybe the still submitting like your license and a few things, but it's a very, very short list.
All right. Okay. That's the only question right now. If anybody else has questions, put them in the chat and we'll get to them as we go.
All right, sounds great. So we will keep it moving then. So if you are approved to be a Hub firm, then you will receive an email message with your certification letter. Of course, it'll have the date on it and the Hub category in which you were certified. the certification is good for 4 years from the date on that letter. And so, 90 days or so before the certification needs to be resubmitted, then you'll begin to get messages to indicate that it's time to recertify your business. And so, do make sure that that is completed prior to the date that your firm is certified, because you will drop off the database if it's not done within that time. If there are changes within your business that would affect your ability to meet the criteria to be certified as a hub firm, then we ask that you submit that to our office within 30 days of those changes. All right, so let's talk a little bit about finding hub vendors. So once your firm is certified, then you go into our hub database, which is available online. And so this is the place where, as agencies and or prime contractors or whomever, it's really public. And so we've even had sometimes private companies that will come because they have a supplier diversity program that they're doing within their company. And so they may be looking also for firms to help them increase their supplier diversity. So this is the place where you can also just kind of go look up your own information. Some of the responsibilities associated with being a hub firm and include just maintaining, of course, your primary information within our system, if there are changes within your profile, because again, if somebody needs to reach out to you, then this is the information that we're used to do that. A typical scenario that we sometimes see is that maybe a firm begins with using a Gmail account, for example, and then they end up getting their own domain as the business grows. So now just be sure that this information gets updated so that we continue to know how to contact you, and anyone that may want to do business with you would be able to contact you there. There may be a need to review and modify your commodity codes or the construction codes associated with your business. And so we suggest that you just, kind of do a look maybe once a year or so. Sometimes firms are adding new things into the mix of business that they do. Other times, you may be becoming more focused in the core competencies within your business. And so, some of the notifications that you're getting, maybe you contract that stuff out now. So you don't need to continue to see those specific types of solicitations as they're coming through the IPS system. Because again, those commodity codes, construction codes, designer services, that's what the IPS system is using to automatically send you notifications about bid opportunities or opportunities to submit a proposal in response to a solicitation. And then sometimes you will get email messages based on, organizations or contract administrators or prime contractors or whomever the case may be, where they are looking for folks to specifically provide, a response to a solicitation. And so in that case, always use it as a point of contact, because in addition to having the hub certification, it still requires that you as the business have to still build relationships with the organizations or the places where you want to do business. And so if you are maybe you provide subcontract services to a prime contractor who's going to have a large construction project, then you're basically looking for ways, to make that interface. But if someone reaches out to you, then, let them know, hey, thank you for making the contact. I'm not going to be able to bid on this, for whatever reason, hopefully because you got a full plate of work already and it's not a good time frame for you. But whatever the reason is, and just kind of thank them and say, hey, look forward to connecting with you at some point in the future. Where do you find opportunities, and what are some things to develop your business? So As we said, IPS system is one primary mode of getting notifications about potential opportunities. The other thing that you may have to do as you kind of get acclimated with understanding like how big packages are organized, maybe sometimes you need to go directly to the IPS system. There are some different searches that are available. So if your business may be, aligned to a particular, so for example, if you're a construction firm, then there's a place where you can see the state construction projects that are underway. So if you are maybe an agency that maybe you do personal protective equipment, there are going to be a couple of agencies, Department of Public Safety, Department of Health and Human Services, that do a lot of that kind of thing. So maybe you're going to go in and just look there. Maybe you are an advertising type firm. And so you can go in, do some keyword searches, and just begin to get an idea of who are some of the different agencies, maybe that even contract out for those services. Some agencies are going to do those things internally. They're not necessarily, always going to do it as an outside service. However, some of the organizations may have a greater need. And so to the extent that you can begin to drill down to better understand who it is that you need to target, to kind of make your company known. That feeds right into the business development process, because that's some of what we work with you to really try to help you better understand that, so that you can build your strategy for doing government contracting relative to the goals and objectives that you have as a business. Then on the Hub website, we also have a place for bid opportunities. This is where, let's say that we have a particular organization, maybe a particular prime contractor, maybe they're looking for some specific ways where they want to integrate Hub firms into the work that they're doing. So they will request for the Hub office to post those bids. So you can go onto our website. Now, in that particular case, it is it's a search that you have to manually do at this point. Now, there are there's an upgrade to that system that's in process that's going to make it, give you some additional flexibility for how you search through those. And so, just kind of stay tuned for that. But right now, again, you can go to our website, look at those bid opportunities, do some keyword searches based on your product, services, et cetera, and just look to see if there's some opportunities there where you may be able to connect with a firm to do business. So a little bit about networking and marketing, and this kind of ties back, of course, to all the support that's offered by the Women's Business Center as you look at really just growing your business as a whole. You're going to want to promote your business certification. And so, just being able to have maybe a capability statement or some kind of a business resume that you use, in order to help people know who you are. If you've got a website, then you can post that information there as well. You are going to want to find and respond to relevant bid opportunities. So there's always going to be a point of contact. If it's a formal solicitation coming through the IPS system, there's going to be a contract administrator that's identified there. Sometimes it's a specific person. Some organizations are starting to use a generic email address, but ultimately there's somebody that's attached there. So you're going to want to leverage whatever those opportunities are. In this environment, networking opportunities are primarily virtual. A lot are virtual. Some organizations, of course, are starting to do in-person events again, but things are, kind of up and down right now because we're seeing these COVID variants and so on and so forth. So the bottom line is this: whatever the the platform is, whether it is in person, whether it is via a virtual tool. It may mean that you as a business have to now think about, maybe you got to dig in a little bit more into some of that software, where if you are attending a virtual event, how do I meet other people? How do I make contact? If I'm looking for certain, companies, getting some idea of who's in the room and being able to navigate and present myself to those folks that are there. Because again, we're looking for linkages, making connections, building relationships. Sometimes pre-bid meetings may be an opportunity for you to do some of those things. And so any of the solicitations that come through the IPS system are going to have a schedule in there that lays out, here's a period of time that you can ask questions about this. There's a close on that, and then whoever's responsible for that solicitation is going to need to then come back and address all the questions that have been asked. As a part of that, if there's a pre-bid meeting, you'll see all of those kinds of things that are listed. And you can actually, in IPS, there is an option that you can just go in and search for pre-bid meetings. So pay attention to some of those things, even if you're not planning on submitting a particular bid in response to a solicitation. Sometimes that may be an opportunity for you to see who else is in the room and ultimately see who are some of the firms that are submitting for those particular opportunities. Maybe it's a place for you to be able to link there. It certainly is a place to be able to get information moving forward as you're thinking about maybe doing solicitations, presenting bids and such in the future. At the end of the day, again, you got to really market your business. And Nathaniel has mentioned they've got some tools to assist you through some of those different processes. Okay. Just a few tips for submitting a solicitation response. Solicitation maybe is a bid. If it's a bid, that means this is primarily a price-based decision that is going to be made in order to make that award. If it is a proposal, then they're looking at qualifications and some other things prior to getting to the step in the process of, looking primarily at the cost of doing that. But whatever it is, that solicitation requires that you really have to look in detail to understand what's there and to ensure that you follow the instructions, because what's being requested, format, how things are done will vary from solicitation to solicitation. So making sure that all of those things, you're usually going to have to read those solicitations more than one time to ultimately make sure that as you put your response together, that you've, kind of dotted the I's and crossed the T's in presenting your response. Don't assume that the state has any prior knowledge of your business. So you're going to want to do a good job of really representing your company. What are the key things? What are your core competencies? What's ultimately the products and or services that your company provides. And then, of course, as I mentioned, there's always going to be a contact, whether it's a person or a primary email. You have a designated amount of time to be able to ask questions about that particular solicitation. And so it has to be done within that time frame. Otherwise, that window of opportunity will have passed you by. Just one other thing I'll note, that if you are submitting a bid or a proposal, then in today's environment, because systems are continuing to change, the Purchase and Contracts Organization for the state is continuing to update some of their systems. So this is kind of what you're going to see in today's environment. If you're submitting a bid or proposal, there's still three different ways to do that at this point. One is that you may be requested to submit in paper form. And so if that's the case, then there's going to be an address. You got to make sure that you build in time, to have it delivered by the, post office. I mean, you don't want to do something that has a post, confirmation date and time on there in order to make sure you get it in on time. The solicitation may specify that you need to submit through NC bids. And so again, you're going to see that option within the system. It's, of course, everything's tied into EVP in order to do these things. So that could be another way that you have to submit, your submission. The third way is that we have this NCE procurement sourcing that is relatively new. However, there is also an avenue to potentially need to submit your bid there. So all of it will be outlined in the solicitation itself. Just be sure to make note as you go through that process. Okay. All right. Any questions? Do we have any more questions that have come through?
Not at this time. I don't see any questions in the chat.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. So let's see. Let me keep moving then. So once you become Hub certified, then there are a number of different trainings that are available to you as a Hub firm. And so you can always visit our website to find out about what those are. But once you're in our database, of course, then you'll get emails through our system for the different events. So just for example, tomorrow we have a session where the Small Business Administration is coming in along with the Department of Labor. They're going to be sharing any updates about COVID funding, which to a large degree, there are no new entry points into that funding. But Department of Labor is going to talk about some of the different programs that are there for small businesses, just to make sure that you're taking advantage of any benefits that you may have if you're employing others. Another example is that we have our statewide midweek. And so that is going to be held on Friday, October 8th. That's an opportunity. We're unveiling our new MBDA Business Center that has been established here in North Carolina as of July is when that funding came through. And so that is going to be an in-person event. We are going to be outside though, however, for that event. So you'll see more information about that as well. As a Hub vendor, there's a whole set of vendor orientation training that you will have access to. There's an excellent foundation course called Purchasing 101. It's really intended to help you to understand how purchasing works within state government. And so we have one of our partners from the fiscal division here at the Department of Administration that spends about 2.5 hours going through and talking about how to do business with the state of North Carolina. How do things work? And so that's a very, very beneficial set of training also. We also bring in some of the prime contractors that are looking for subcontractors. And so they will talk about their business, what the opportunities are, how do you get plugged in to their system. This is contact information. So if you have any questions about the Hub certification process, feel free to contact us. The Hub number is over on the right-hand side of the screen. Call us, email us. That is our main intake line. And so the persons that answer that phone will be very adept at being able to handle any questions that you have about the process. I don't work directly in certifications, and so you can come to me, but I'm just going to have to refer you over to the certification team. So the best direct way of getting assistance is just to call our main office or email that address. If you have any questions again about EVP getting that first step in the process done, there's the contact information there for the EVP help desk. Right. And so with that, that is the end of my information. Thank you so much for joining us and having us here with you, and best of success to all the firms. We do hope that you will choose to be Hub certified. And so we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you, Nathaniel.
Thank you, Sharonetta. I appreciate you very much. Great information. I told everybody that we'll share the recording of this and the presentation. I think that's still okay with you, right? And so they can see all the links, they can get all this information and use all those links. I do have one question that popped up if you have time to take it.
Sure.
We're talking about it. The question is, I don't want to misinterpret it, so I'll just read it. It says, what are the national entities for the WOSB, and when does self-reporting last or expire?
Okay, the first part of that, the woman-owned small business certification is straight from the Small Business Administration. And so if you just Google SBA small business programs, then you'll be able to get there. Now, some of those, there are a lot of organizations that their certification is an annual one that you would have to update. So you just kind of have to pay attention to, to what those requirements are. I think SBA's may be an annual one. Okay. Does that answer the question? I'm not sure if that, when it says when does self-reporting last, I'm not quite sure what that means.
I think it's about the expiration of the certification.
Okay. So again, Hub certification is a 4-year certification. And so, again, if something changes about your status as it relates to being meeting the qualifiers for certification, then we do ask that you notify us, because sometimes maybe a business gets sold, it may no longer be eligible for certification. But other than that, it is a 4-year certification for Hub, which is our state certification.
All right, I think that answers the question. I appreciate you, Shay, again. I wanted to say thank you to everybody who was with us. Thank you for saying thank you on the chat. We appreciate you very much, and hope this was definitely informative. I'm going to share again the recording and the presentation, and you'll have lots of resources like you saw in the presentation. You'll be able to go directly to the different links and start the process of getting Hub certified if that is what is appropriate for your business. Remember us here at the Women's Business Center. We offer one-on-one counseling, and we are here for you in the process of certifying. Whatever we can help you with or guide you towards as far as collecting information or documentation or deciding whether your business should be Hub certified or another type of certification, we would love to assist you with that. So with that, thank you again. Have a great day, and I hope everybody continues to have a great day.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye, everyone.